Bill and Brian here with Energy Road, and listen, welcome to Refining Reality. It is it's part of the family of OGGN. That's Oil and Gas Global Network. Okay, OGGN. I call it Ogden. They don't get upset. They get a little upset about that.
Ogden in your noggin.
That's right. Put a little Ogden in your noggin is what I always say. So we're part of a family of podcasts. You need to check it out. It's a great place to get information. We are sponsored by Tracerco, and today we actually are just honored to have Fabio here to talk a little bit about Tracerco, and we're going to be asking him questions that maybe you need to be asking about Tracerco as well. So, Fabio, welcome to the podcast.
It's an honor to be here. Really, really happy, really glad to be part of the podcast today, guys.
Yeah, no, thank you, Fabio, because I know you just were telling us before we hit record that you're traveling all over the place. I heard UK, Middle East, United States. Do you know what time of day it is at any given, like, do you, what clock do you look at with all those different times?
It's always a level of clock somewhere. That's where you go for, right?
Exactly.
Which means,
yeah, Fabio, I was traveling a lot one time, and I just decided I'd create my own time zone and let everybody else adjust.
Why not, right?
I kind of like that approach, but the one of the reasons that we're super happy to have you is Bill and I are located in the U.S. and Fabio has to navigate being in European time zone as well as the Middle East, as well as Asia, as well as the United States, which means I think he has probably 45 to 50 minutes assigned for sleep every night. So
that's about right.
I think that's what it is. But we've been dropping some episodes, and if this is your first time listening, go ahead and hit like, subscribe, comment, because that tells us a little bit something. But we're so happy to be partnered with OGGN and sponsored by Tracerco, because the downstream part of the energy industry, basically the bridge between crude oil and into refined products, which is actually consumption. We were just talking about this a week or so ago. A lot of people talk about, well, how much crude is consumed? And I'm like, well, technically none, because it has to be converted to something else. I mean, you can get into a lot of different arguments. It has to be converted to some of that. And there's a big gap in understanding, well, what is the difference between the crude oil and the downstream? And it's really the bridge of the refining and petrochemical side that creates that upstream feedstock into usable products, whether it's fuel, whether it's plastics, whether it's whatever. But one of the things that Bill and I have been fascinated with is Tracerco's technology. And when I was looking at some of the Tracerco technology, I was fascinated because I started thinking of the medical side of the industry, which is kind of a very analytical, let's look inside the body, let's see what's happening. And then that's what I was envisioning. So I want to see if you could tell us a little bit something about you, how you got involved in Tracerco, and maybe a little bit about the evolution of Tracerco. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And I will start with what you mentioned about the medical side. It's funny, I've been with the company for over 20 years, right? So it's been a fun and fantastic ride. And in this when I started and we started doing and working and doing things, my friends, they would go, what do you do? And I would try and explain, right? And they would like, So remember Friends, the TV show that had Chandler?
Yep.
So I was Chandler, right? Well, Fabio does something with oil and gas that they don't know what it is, right? So eventually I came up with this analogy of the medical industry. We are plant doctors. So we go to sites, and if you have a pain, you have something going in your body, you don't know what it is. It is a problem. Obviously, you don't want to go into surgery firsthand. You don't want somebody to cut you open just to see what it is, right? So you go for a scan, you go for a blood test, you go and test different things without stopping, shutting you down. And that's what we do, right? We're looking inside these plants, these processes without shutting down. That's the big value. And then finding root causes, finding where the problem is, right? And that helps a lot our customers to just make it shorter, the time between whatever's going on and remediation, which for them is money. right? So
Yeah.
it's a cute way to explain in a nutshell. Obviously, we do a lot more, and there's different ways to position, but that
Well,
analogy
it's
helps me so much.
it's kind of when you mention that without shutting down, and a lot of people in the energy industry and even outside the energy industry have a hard time really contemplating, well, what does that mean? For instance, I saw one of your recent LinkedIn posts where you were talking about the 91% refinery utilization right now because
Yes.
crack spreads are super high because of geopolitical conflicts that are impacting the market. And when you look at that utilization rate, this is a lot of money for refineries and petrochemicals, and having that uptime and having the capability to diagnose what is actually happening inside their refineries, their processes, and their systems without shutting down. I mean, is it possible to utilize your technology and reduce turnaround times or reduce downtimes through the year?
100%, 100%. So
Oh,
I think the
wow.
three
Okay.
big value propositions the Traceco will have, right? It is the preventive maintenance, right? So we can
Mm-hmm.
plan, help customers to plan that, and the way we do that is basically let's get a distillation column as an example. You're approaching a turnaround. You don't know how many trays you need to buy, right? So you buy
Okay.
a bunch of trays just in case. We can go in and scan that column and identify how many trays are damaged, right?
Okay.
Right.
So on a preventive maintenance, first you're saving money, right? Because you're buying the
Right.
amount of trays that you need to buy. And second, it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be targeted. If it is that section of a tower, you're going to go straight there and you're going to reduce the time you're down. So yeah, there's a ton of things we can do to help in preventive maintenance.
I
See,
mean,
it
100%.
seems like that would also prevent you from going to places that you don't need to go. And that's where
Yes.
I find when which plants will they'll say, well, we're going to take it all down. Well, we don't really need to take it all down now that we know where the problem is. We just go specify the problem. So it's actually saving money in two ways.
100%.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
we
I mean,
saw a recent example we had on that is a pre-shutdown. There was a reactor that they haven't gone in the previous shutdown, so they felt like they needed to do it
mm-hmm.
on that one. But we scanned the reactor, we scanned the catalytical bed, and everything was good. Everything was there. There was nothing bad at all with it,
Wow.
right? To the point where
So
they decided,
they
okay,
so they
so we
actually
don't
didn't
need to
have
go
to
in.
do it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
That
And
saves a
that's
couple of days of where you can actually run the refinery a couple of more days. And that's, you don't make money when you're not running.
oh yeah.
100%. Yes,
Oh yeah.
yes,
I mean, because per 10,000 barrels a day, I mean that could be $500,000 a day. Of
yes.
and that's for 10,000 barrels. Imagine if you have a 100,000 barrel a day
100,000
refinery.
barrels. It's crazy,
one
right? Yeah.
day, one day of saved downtime pays for so much. And it's always tricky in the energy industry because there's so much cost intensiveness on the equipment purchases, on the maintenance, on the a lot of the energy industry is built from a psychology of I don't want to spend extra stuff. But what if that extra stuff, if you're spending a fraction of it and your yield is that much, I mean, this just becomes a no-brainer. And this might be a good point. I'm going to go ahead and talk about Tracerco. And then this podcast is sponsored by Tracerco as a global leader in diagnostic technologies, which we've been talking about. Tracerco provides real-time management insights for the refining and petrochemical industry, and it helps operations managers, process engineers, refinery managers make confident decisions and optimize their performance. Their technologies deliver accurate, live, online data so that you can benchmark your operations. I mean, you can see this in real time, focus improvements where they matter most, and catch issues early. This is the key one that I always think about. Catching issues early before they impact production. And the result is fewer shutdowns, lower costs, and the confidence to run your podcast. We're on a podcast. Your
Yes.
plant at the full potential. Yeah, and with fewer shutdowns on the podcast, Fabio is helping us in real time, making sure we don't have podcast shutdowns. See, Tracerco can help in so many different ways.
That's their new product is podcast.
Is podcast shutdowns, avoiding
Yeah.
podcast shutdowns. So if you
Podcast
want
shutdown.
Believe me, that's probably that
Oh,
would be a fully
well,
funded silo for sure because
Mark
there's a
and
lot of
Paige,
them.
if you're
100%.
listening, I think Tracerco can help provide this
Yeah,
service for
exactly.
OGGN using premium grade, premium grade technology. Well, let me
Technology.
ask you this. So, with that evolution over 20 years, there's a lot of different pivots. What are kind of the key anchors in the Tracerco mix of range of products? Like if a refining manager or process engineer, they might be thinking of a particular product. So, but somebody else in the plant side may be looking at a different product. So, can you give us kind of a product suite or
Yes.
an anchoring?
Of course, of course. I think let me go on the applications, which is easier than, and then we touch on the products, right? So Tracerco started in like over 60 years ago,
Okay.
right? So we started as part of the CT scanners. They were being developed for the medical industry, and a bunch of scientists they thought, well, what if we do that with industrial plants? They were part of ICI, which is a UK-based petrochemical, was huge. So that's how we started. So we started with a bunch of applications trying to see inside processes. That's how we started,
Okay.
right? Which is now the diagnostic services business unit we have.
Hmm.
So in these services, we use basically radiation to see inside, to see through. And then we
Okay.
can see mechanical integrity and process conditions. So fluids, interfaces, levels, etc. So we started providing this as a service to the industry. And then applications is everywhere, right? You can do that in towers, you can do that in reactors, you can do that in storage tanks where I want to do an inventory check. I want to see if my level gauge is working. So we can go as a service and just find the level from the outside and tell them what it
Okay.
is. So we came up with all these cool different applications. And then eventually one of the customers said, well, really, I need one of your guys measuring this 24/7, right? It's critical to us. I need a fixed instrument here.
Okay.
And then we were, okay, we have all these good technologies with radiation. Why don't we develop some bespoke radiation instruments? So we call nucleonics, right? And then we created the second division, which is the instruments division, right? And what happens there mainly is level gauges, interface gauges, density gauges, and then we have a profiling instrument that will basically do what our services are doing. So it's very complementary in a way that we can go to a site and be the partner service provider, right? You need
Hmm.
something, I can come and help you diagnose. But eventually, if it is something critical to you, we can install a fixed instrument there and just let it run, right?
Okay.
No, Fabio, years ago, I was helping, basically, was responsible for building a gas processing plant. And my boss said, well, he was one to understand, he didn't understand plants very well. Says, well, here's what it is. Day one is your best day. From then on, everything starts breaking. So
So it's kind of
Like
like a
it.
what you
car.
do,
It's kind of like when you buy a
basically what
car. The first
basically
day
what
you
we
drive
do
it
is,
off the lot is the best day you drive that car. Is that what it is?
yeah, we spend the rest of the life of this plant managing failure. That's what we do.
Yes,
And what
Mm.
we try
yes.
to do is become really good at that because if we manage failure better than our competitors, we're the ones who are still working at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
you do that
Yes.
by information. And it amazed me how much that information is becoming, even on things as simple as a compressor. They literally have sensors now for every cylinder of the compressor to understand if you're about to have a, a mega failure in that compressor that's going to shut you down for this part. I mean, it's all goes back to what is the net income coming in, and that's what you're trying to do. And with information that Tracerco is providing, you're able to manage those failures in a much more efficient and cost efficient way. I always used to have arguments with my engineers. I would say, "Well, this is how we want efficiency." Well, I says, "I'm not looking for production efficiency. I'm looking for economic efficiency."
Right.
Perfect.
So let's talk about
Perfect.
that And so it took a while for them to get it, but they did get it. But when you don't have information, it costs you money.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
And Bill, I think I have a good example there, right? With being working with refiners across the world. Obviously, some cultures are more proactive in terms of let's hire an external company to help me. So let me make it quick. Let me make it economically efficient for me. Other cultures, they're more resistant. They're like, well, I have 20 engineers to troubleshoot this. They better know what they're doing. And then you have a problem going for a week, 2 weeks, right? And then eventually they figure it out, right? Because they're smart. And we position these technologies in the terms of you are the expert in your process. We are experts in helping you find the problem faster or help you increase whatever it is. And in some cultures, in some countries, we saw that in the Middle East, we saw that in South America, some customers slowly, they used us once and they were like, yeah, this is good. And twice. And eventually it just, they peak and they say, yeah, it's all about the timing, right? It's all about being more economically efficient and finding the problem faster and troubleshooting it faster. So we got some adherence from these guys eventually, which is very interesting to see, right? So yeah, it is a big component.
Well, one of the things that I think about, Fabio, is I was managing some upstream midstream infrastructure, and we had a condensate stabilization tower. We didn't own it; the midstream company actually owned it, but it was not getting the efficiency. And this was years ago, and I wasn't aware of Tracerco. Otherwise, I would have given you a call, because they had to disassemble the tower, lay it down on the ground, and actually get into each component and rebuild particular parts, because they didn't know what was wrong. They had to open everything up. And now I think, well, geez, and this was years ago, and I was like, well, I didn't have awareness of Tracerco. Otherwise, I would have said, well, wait a second. This way, you don't have to do that, and you could do it while it's operating to actually see what is happening and where that efficiency loss is, because it was operating at 60% of the capacity, and we couldn't figure out why. So, but it's that first leap of petrochemicals, refineries, midstream players. They don't want to spend more money, and this is where Bill and I, over the course of our careers, have interfaced with so many people in the energy industry. They're like, well, I don't want to spend extra dollars, and not knowing anything about the product cost for the particular application, we always posed a question. Well, what if they charge you $1 million, but you find the potential of 4 million to 15 million? Well, I like that.
Yes.
Where can I get that money? Well, you got to spend the $1 million to know where to get that money.
Exactly.
So, and that's it's like this little logic loop of, I want that money, but I don't want to spend it. And I'm like, the only way to know is to spend it, right?
Yeah.
And
sometimes,
is that something that when you're proposing this to potential customers, does that ever come up?
100%. And it's interesting. Our North American technical advisors team, right? Our sales team in the US. I saw a presentation from them 3 years ago, and it was really clever. The first slide they had is, what's the cost of inefficiency? What's the cost of running at 60%? What's the cost of this? And they would start that conversation with the customers, right? And they would start realizing real money there. Well, that probably costs this. It's the $500,000 to $5 million a day type of thing, right? And then from there, we would then talk about the technologies and the things we can do to help, right? So it is always about the marginal difference between what value you're adding in doing that versus what you're saving on versus what you're potentially going to uncover. Yeah, so we saw so many examples. We saw examples about increasing throughput in plants, right? With confidence. Every time you try to push for more, it is a risk, right? You have a risk of something going wrong. You're flooding part of your process, and then products off spec, and then you're in trouble. Or you start destroying things faster, right? You coke up, wash beds, things like that, which means you're going to shut down faster. And us going in and measuring those things really help in terms of, okay, this is safe, I can keep pushing. And then when you see you increase for another 10% in terms of efficiency of what you're pushing out. And When you convert that to money, it's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that, Fabio, is that when you see that, my gosh, I could have been pushing my plant 10% more without causing any damage. That's money that I've left on the table.
Yep.
And
Yes.
so, and not only is it money that you left on the table, it actually goes directly to the net profit line.
Absolutely.
And that's
100%.
significantly different than being in gross profit and having to spend a lot of money. So, if you want to increase your economic efficiency, you want as much as that net profit as possible. And if you can take something that's in, increases performance by even 2 or 3% up to 10%, that's big money in these refineries.
Yeah. Well, it
Yes.
it makes it so much more important to understand how much you could push it and how much you could do that because we first started talking about how to avoid shutdowns and how to avoid and how to optimize that preventative maintenance because the energy industry on valuations is so incredibly volatile. We're recording this on May 26th. This might drop in a week or so. So the oil market is incredibly volatile. Crack spreads are through the roof, and refineries are close to 92% on utilization.
Utilization.
Petrochemicals are probably very similar, where you have that. So optimizing that uptime and reducing the shutdowns is important. But also, what you touched on, Fabio, and what you piggybacked on, Bill, is that much more important. What if that 91% utilization could go to 97%? Historically, we don't see that utilization, but we've had refineries shut down. And right now, the spreads are there that right now, a lot of those companies would have liked to turn back the clock and actually maybe run their refineries another year. Um,
Yes.
just
Yep.
just run it a little bit longer. So most of your customers are across the globe, and you said right now there's a little bit of concentration in the U.S. Y'all are making some new pathways here. Is that what I heard?
Yes, yeah. So the US, I think it's in this perfect storm scenario. The US is very fortunate in the sense that we have crude coming in and then pushing products, right? So refineries are really pushing hard. So yeah, so the team is really focused. I think obviously look across the globe. We tend to say we are where the oil is, right?
Yep.
So we don't make any distinctions, but definitely in the U.S. right now we have a good team. We have 6 people in terms of sales. We have a good base of around 80 people in terms of services and support, and just being on plants every day and scanning things every day and just trying to find these. So yeah, so there's a lot of volume and activities happening in the U.S. right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I would imagine too that with the various different grades of crude that we're now seeing on the market, and these refineries weren't designed for some of these grades of crude,
Right.
that having some of your information will help them be able to tweak that refinery to be able to accept grades of crude they had not been able to accept before. Once
Yes.
again, another way to increase that margin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Fabio, we want to have you back. We want to have you back as quickly as possible, but I know that you have like a lot of well, when you do the podcast, I guess if it's a 20-minute podcast, that 45 minutes of sleep becomes 25 minutes. So I suppose whenever you're well rested, maybe. But how could somebody reach out to Tracerco if this unlodge some things to where they're like, I wonder if that would be helpful here. How would somebody go about doing that? Is there a particular place or an email address, or how could they reach out?
Our website is really the best way because then the inquiry will go there and will direct to the region, right? So
Okay,
www.traceco.com. That is the
okay,
main thing. Obviously, social media. We are in all socials, right? We have a LinkedIn profile as Traceco. I'm there. All the team is there. If you find anybody that is Traceco, hit them, and they will help for sure.
Well, and that's and again that's Tracerco TRACERCO.com, and that is going to be in the show notes, depending on which platform you're watching this, it could be in text down below in Apple, and it should be a direct link on YouTube. But Fabio, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you carving out some time, and we're looking forward to having you back because by all the different product lines that y'all have, I think there's so many areas that we could go into, and if we actually went to understand the Tracerco product line, I think we'd probably continuously podcast this for 30 days nonstop. I think it'd be 24/7, 30 days.
Wow.
30 days
Yes.
nonstop. So listen, thank you so much for having us. I hope you have a
Right.
fantastic day. And
Whatever time that is, wherever you are.
if it's day or nighttime, it's Fabio time. It's Fabio time.
It's Fabio time.
So,
That's right.
Look, it was a pleasure to be here, guys. Thank you very much for the invite. It was really, really, really good. And yeah, looking forward to the next one.
awesome. Thanks so much. Have a good day, folks.
See you, folks.
Thanks for listening to OGGN, the world's largest and most listened to podcast network for the oil and energy industry. If you like this show, leave us a review and then go to OGGN.com to learn about all our other shows. And don't forget to sign up for our weekly newsletter. This show has been a production of the Oil and Gas Global Network.